I am making another meal in a jar, and today it is going to be shredded chicken. Welcome back, fellow canners. If you're new here, I'm Catherine, the Aerogarden Homesteader, and today I am making a version of the shredded beef that I made recently. I'm going to do a chicken version. So it calls for onion slices. I am going to slice up some onion. I did have some diced onion left over from another project, so I will probably just use that for one of the jars. But otherwise I need at least, well, at most, 1 cup of onion per jar. My plan is to make 4 jars of this, so I have hopefully taken out enough ingredients to do 4 jars. Okay, well, hopefully that is the right amount of onion. Okay, I'm going to set up to cut up some of the chicken so I can get that to fit in the bowl. It is a pound of chicken per jar. So I better get some chicken breasts and start chopping. Fill the bowl up first. I want to get this chunked up, and I want to get any extra fat off. Extra fat is not really all that great for canning. It can sometimes compromise the seal. So, and I also want to make sure I'm checking for any little grizzly bits, because that happens too. So, and I might have a little extra chicken here, so we will see how that goes at the end. It says approximately 2-inch chunks, which these are probably smaller than they need to be. I'll have to make them bigger on the next one. That's probably a 2-inch chunk. Now, if you might be wondering why I am changing the recipe, I did do this as a beef version, which is what the original calls for. It calls for beef. We like beef. We like chicken more. So, you know what, if I can make something in a protein that we prefer, then why not? I don't feel like changing the protein substantially changes the recipe. Protein should be protein. So I feel comfortable making that change. I'm not adding in more onions or doing anything else that can substantially change something. I'm literally just changing the protein here. I am actually going to be adding in, it calls for fresh garlic, and well, I don't have any, so I'm just going to put in some garlic, granulated garlic, and that should be fine. Generally it's okay to substitute stuff like that, but you know, some recipes say don't make any substitution, so definitely check your recipe and make sure you're following that. But I have heard that it is normally safe to substitute in a dry ingredient, but it's not okay to substitute in a fresh ingredient. So like if you're making spaghetti and you want to add like more spice, you're supposed to be okay to do that, but you're not okay to just randomly add in mushrooms or something that's not actually in the recipe. So I don't know if that makes sense, but don't substitute anything if you just don't feel comfortable doing that. But I feel like this is a pretty minor substitution, and I think it should be fine. Like, why wouldn't they just say your protein of choice? Not everyone likes beef. Not everyone can eat beef. Or pork, for that matter. That's pretty much most of the prep, was just chopping onions and the meat. Obviously, I should, part of the prep would also include garlic, but I don't have the garlic, so I will be minced garlic. Okay, apparently it calls for cilantro. I don't have that either. Might be able to finagle some dried cilantro, but yeah, I don't have any fresh. Okay, I do have some chipotles and adobo. I am going to need to clean up a cutting board and get that diced up as well. Okay, clean knife. I just flipped the onion board over, so I don't have to worry about getting any of the onion juice all over the place. Doesn't really matter, it's all going in the same location. Now, these are chipotle peppers that I froze a while back, so I am probably going to just, this is the adobo sauce, kind of separated a little bit. This is the pepper. When you're saving peppers or using them from the can, check to make sure they don't leave the stem on. I have found the stems on in the past, and they're hard and woody, and nobody needs to eat that. Okay, so I guess there is only 1 pepper per container. Calls for 2, so I might need to go and track down more peppers. I guess that's what I get for assuming that there are 2 in each container. That's my bad. I will have to see if I can find more. Alright, let's see if I can find more peppers. Well, that would be a nope. I guess I don't have any more ready to go, so I will just, gee, I wonder if I should just open a new can and get that going. Let me track down a can. Alright, here we go. Tracked down another can. That lid's not coming off. Alright, let me see. These are big boys. Alright. Ooh, that is messy. Alright, see if I can track down another small one. So I think if you get a small can like this one, the 7-ounce can, there might be enough peppers to do a 4 jar batch. I know that some of the cans do come, they're bigger. This was a smaller one. I've been trying to buy the smaller ones lately because I don't always use a whole big can. That's why I freeze them. But yeah, this smaller one has been kind of nice. Alright, there we go. Yeah, it does look like there's 3 or 4 peppers left in there, so that's about the right amount for a 4 jar batch. And depending on your tolerance for heat, you might actually be able to stretch that out into a 5 jar batch and just put a few less peppers per jar. I'm not actually sure how spicy this will be, so I guess that will be something. That's why I want to test out these recipes from beginning to end. If you're just sort of following along the series, then you'll know what my game plan is, but if you're new here to this is your first time watching one of these meal prep recipes, my game plan is to take this from beginning to end. So I will let you know. My spice tolerance isn't really high, but I mean I can handle some heat. My husband, on the other hand, he really likes the heat. So this, I'll try to give you a, like, if it's a mild, medium, or hot, depending. You know, I put 2 peppers in. I'm following the recipe except for the protein. Okay, so I think I am ready to start filling jars. Let me track down some cilantro before we get going, just so that I have it handy. Okay, there we go. So I got the powdered stems and I have some whole leaves. So I'm going to split the leaves up between each one, so I have some whole leaves. And then I'll have some of the cilantro powder for the flavor. Let me get the jars. So I will need, I'm going to put the dry stuff in first, 1 teaspoon of salt per jar. I really hope this isn't too much salt. I apparently have a very low tolerance for salt because I just don't use it very often, so I'm hoping this isn't going to be too salty. This is pickling and canning salt, so it shouldn't go cloudy. Okay, I'm going to be using minced garlic, so it calls for 4 cloves of garlic per jar. Google claims that a 1/4 teaspoon is equivalent to 1 clove, so I'm putting in 1 teaspoon, so that should hopefully be the equivalent of 4 cloves. I sometimes have my doubts about Google, but we'll give it a try. Spilling it all over the place. Okay, there's that. Okay, and then it calls for oregano. Now, since this dish seems to have like a Mexican flair to it, I'm actually using Mexican oregano. And I'm putting in a teaspoon. I'm going to put in, oops, let's split this one up first. Get a little bit of this in each one. There you go. And then I will add a teaspoon of the stems. Actually, you know, I might add half a teaspoon. This stuff's pretty potent. 1 per. Okay, get my chicken in. Okay, so I think I can fit another piece in this one and this one. Okay. Okay, I think I put in too much chicken just because I'm supposed to fit in a cup of onion. So I'm going to take out some, get my onion in. There we go. Okay. Get a piece out. Save that for later. Ooh, that might be way over full. Okay, well I feel like the diced onion did a lot better than the onion slices, so the mileage may vary. Now it will cook down a little bit, so I'm not too concerned. There are air pockets and all that. Some of the onion will fall back down in there. but I'm sure part of it's just the measuring process too. Alright. Use those onions for something else later. This one's got a little bit too much. Get that into those pockets. Okay, so using wide mouth jars definitely makes this a little easier, but if all you have are the narrow mouth, then go right ahead and use those. It will be fine. Just won't be able to fit your hands in quite so well. Okay, there is that. I'm going to get some broth to put in and fill that up. Alright, well, I feel like I've washed my hands about 1,000,000 times. Okay, we'll need that. I got some lids. My debubbler. Let's get some stock. Okay, this has been sitting in the canner, warming up. And there goes the lid. Luckily it was butter side up. That is hot. I'm going to put a little stock. Whoa! I'm going to make a big mess. I'm going to put a little stock in each one. And if I need more water to get it going, I will add some. Okay, well, I have a little bit left, so I definitely need to go through and debubble. See where we are at. Okay, just got a little bit of tap water. It's coming out hot because I've been washing my hands about 1,000,000 times. That's just what happens when you work with raw chicken. You just gotta wash your hands a lot. Okay. Give it a last pokey poke. Most of the bubbles should at this point be up at the top, so just see how those are doing. Take out a couple of these extra onions. I think I overloaded on the chicken. Okay, there we go. I do try to wipe the bottom sometimes, but I don't always remember. Okay, so this is going to process for 90 minutes. I did them in quarts, so that is 90 minutes. If you choose to do this in pints, you could do it for 75 minutes. Just kind of depends on how many people you're trying to feed and what your goal is with this meal. So I will show you how this turns out, and I will turn it into a meal so you can see what it looks like, and I will tell you how it is. Making the taco chicken is actually really easy. I just have to dump it out in a pan and heat it up. But according to the canning book, the recommended way of making, I mean, obviously this was for the beef version, is to saute some onions first, then add the meat. Both methods are fine. It just depends on what you're looking for. I like the fact that it has the onion flavor already, but not the onion texture. It's already sort of mashed into the meat, you know, as a flavoring. That's pretty much what my family prefers, but if you want to have actual onion in there, in, you know, texture and all that, go with the fresh onion, it's fine. We preferred the chicken version to the beef version. I feel like I would tweak the seasonings a little bit. In my opinion, the chipotle pepper was not very spicy. I mean, that's perfectly fine. It was more like a flavoring, in my opinion, than an actual, you know, addition of heat. So it depends on what you're looking for. We found that the flavoring was fine. I don't know if I would put too much in. It can be a strong flavoring. It does add a little heat, but in our opinion it wasn't very spicy. And this was perfect for my kid who does, in fact, like tacos. One of them does. So I think I would have added some cumin, and I think the salt was fine. Like, I don't notice salt unless it's overly salty. So maybe it needed more salt and I just didn't notice. But obviously you can just adjust that after the fact. In the end, for me, this is a really good convenience meal, and I would definitely make more. I would play with the seasonings a little to bring it more in line with what we prefer, but it's really handy to have on the shelf, and I'm thinking this is going to be a really nice convenience meal for summer cooking, you know, when we're just too busy and just trying to get summer things done, and we just don't have time to cook. I can just whip this up and have meal on the table in, you know, like a few minutes. It literally takes as long as it does to heat it up. It is really nice to be able to change out the protein of a convenience meal and have something completely different, and that is what I did in this case, and we preferred it. So don't be afraid to play around with the recipes a little bit. Stay within the confines of what is there. So if it calls for a pound of meat, put in a pound of meat, but you can play with the meat choice. So I hope you found this video useful. Thank you so much for watching. I will have some videos at the end that you might also enjoy, and I will see you next time on the Aerogarden Homestead.